Today, we have another of our surprising stories from the Bible. Today, Jesus tells a story to help people understand what really is and what really isn't important. And there's a big surprise in store for the man in the story. So if you're ready, let's open the book and read The Greedy Farmer.
Once upon a time, said Jesus, there was a rich man who spent the whole of his life thinking about how he'd become richer. One morning, the rich man, who owned a farm, walked from his house to his fields. He looked at his crops, rubbed his hands together greedily. Mine, all mine, he said. And he climbed to the top of the biggest barn and looked down across the farm. Work harder, he ordered his servants, who were loading grain sack by sack in the hot sun. I'm very rich, he said to himself, but I'd like to be richer. The next week, he walked from his house to the fields, and he looked at his crops and rubbed his hands together greedily. Oh, it's mine, all mine. He climbed to the top of his biggest barn, and he looked out across the farm. Shoo! Shoo! Go away, he screamed at some of the birds who'd swooped down and started to peck at his grain. This is mine, all mine, and you can't have any of it. Another week went by. The rich man walked from his house to his fields. He looked at his crops and rubbed his hands together greedily. Mine, all mine, he said. He climbed to the top of the biggest barn and he looked down across the farm. Stop, thief! He shouted at a poor man who stopped to pick some of the grain that had accidentally spilt on the floor. The poor man had a wife and 3 children to feed and nothing to eat. You will find some other way to feed your family, he said. This is mine, all mine, and you can't have any of it. The rich man walked home. He thought long and hard about his grain. It's spilling out. The birds are eating it. Poor people are coming to steal the grain that's mine out of the door. I can't allow this to happen. This grain is mine, all mine. What shall I do? The next morning, in fact, the rich man walked from his house to his fields. Hey, he called to his servants, stop working, put down your tools and come here. The servants put down their shovels in surprise. This barn isn't big enough. Today, I want you to pull it down. Yes, pull it down completely and build a bigger one. Oh, and when you've finished, you can start to build a second one. I have tons and tons of grain, and I'm going to store it all. Then I will sell it, and I will be rich, rich beyond my wildest dreams. Day after day, the rich man went to his fields to watch the servants building his enormous barns. He made sure no one came by to take so much as a handful of his precious grain. At last, the barns were finished. The rich man walked home. He thought long and hard about his life. I have so much that I will never need to work again. In the morning, I will go out and buy myself some fine clothes. I'll order the best food and crates of the best wine. I'm going to have a wonderful time spending all my money, and it's mine, all mine. But that very night, the man died in his sleep. No one came to mourn, and no one wept for the man who had all the riches in the world, but who kept them all to himself. As Jesus finished the story, he looked around. "Don't be like that man," he said. "People like that never please God. Being rich won't make you happy. Being selfish is always a bad choice in the very end."
Did you spot the surprise in the story? After all his hard work, the farmer didn't live long enough to enjoy all the money he had made. Well, not so much a surprise, more a nasty shock. The farmer was selfish and greedy. He had far more than he needed, and he wouldn't share with anyone else, not even the really poor people. Let's close our eyes and think about those words from the story. By storing up riches for himself, he forgot all about the really important things in life. And now let's think about this. If being rich isn't important, then what is? Now I'm going to say a prayer, and if you want to make it your prayer, just say Amen at the end after me. Dear God, please help us to know what is really important in life and what isn't, and help us not to be like the greedy farmer, but to share what we have with others. Amen.